Alright, so here's what we're going to tie. This pattern doesn't have a name, and if it does, I don't know what it is. This was just taught to me by a friend of mine. This is a basic little midge pattern. For this variation, we're going to tie 4 variations in this video, but this particular variation just requires 2 materials, and it just gives you something to cut your teeth on. Actually, all 4 of these variations will. And yeah, super simple, so we'll get going. So if you watch the first video that I did for this, just on covering terminology and basics, you'll know why I've got a little black mark right there and why we're going to use that for our starting point. And so we're going to start our thread there, use a 3-turn tie-in. I'm going to come 1 wrap to the back, trim out my thread. Now for this, I want my thread to be open and flat. We don't want roped thread here, so you can untwist it, and we're going to bring it back so that when we rest our thread, it's right at about the barb. And now we're going to bring our thread back forward, and what we want to do here is stop about 1 bodkin width from where we started our thread, just like so. Next, we're going to take our peacock herl. Now I've got my tip side coming forward. We're going to trim that out. The butt side will look something along those lines, and we're going to clip out the first inch or inch and a half. It's rather weak, and so for tie-in purposes, we don't want that available. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line this material up on the top of my hook shank so that it's even with where my thread started. And I'm just going to take a loose turn over, not really any tension, and I'm just going to slowly tighten as I wrap all this material in, stopping right where the thread started. And of course, someone's having fun with fireworks. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to twist these 2 pieces of herl together. I've just got it in my finger and I'm just gently rotating it. Make sure you twist it in one direction. All it's going to do is kind of strengthen it, twist it around. It's going to make your herl a little more fluffy. Since we're tying this on a size 12, I'm using 2 pieces of herl. If you're going to tie this is typically a midge pattern tied on something like 18 to 24. You're going to want just 1 piece of herl, and you're only going to want to do 1 to 3 wraps at most of herl. So we're going to twist 2 together, and each time we go around, that's 2, 4, 6. It'd be, you can kind of see what I'm saying. It'd be equivalent to about that same amount of turns of just 1 strand of herl. And we're just going to work our way forward. Now to tie this off, all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my material to the front side of my thread. I'm going to lift up, pull my thread over once, twice, and that's actually going to catch my material. You can see I've got no tension on my thread. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 more wraps in just to secure it. I want to take my left thumb, left index, draw everything to the back, and wrap this material in reverse. This creates what I call a V-wedge. And you've trapped the material one way, and now that you've turned it around, it creates a little wedge. And so you can trim it out with your scissors, or if you do them one at a time, I'll pinch the herl with my right thumb, right index, and use my right middle finger just to snip these off. And that works very well. And we're going to continue to wrap just to where the herl basically started. And now we can finish our fly with either a couple of half hitches and some glue, or there you go. Or you can do a whip finish here and glue, except now I can't. There it is. So now you can't film a whip finisher. And if you do whip finish, it's typically better if you start from the back and work your way forward to the eye. And that's all there is to tying this first variation to this fly. Very simple fly. It's actually very effective. This will mimic a lot of bugs in the water. So with this one tied, let's get on to variation number 2, And all we're going to do is add some wire. All right, so for this variation, you can see all I've done here is I've actually kind of extended the thorax just a little bit, which is fine. You can keep it short or extend it a little if you like. And we've just ribbed the fly with some wire. A lot of these trout flies, midges, and so on, you're gonna have to rib the fly, not only because it helps mimic the bug, but because it's actually going to help start to protect your material once we actually have body material on there. So let's just go ahead and get started. Again, I'm going to start at my little black dot. I'm going to do my jam knot here, which I prefer the 3-turn tie-in for that. Bring it to the back. I'm going to spin my thread open, and we're going to work back to the barb with touching turns. On a nice little even body here. Again, these flies are going to work probably a lot better on 16, 18, down to 24 or something like that. But if you're just getting into tying, again, this is a good size and a good way to practice some of these just real fundamental techniques while you're learning to build some flies. You can bring your rib back forward, or I'm sorry, your thread back forward. Now what we're going to do is we're going to catch our rib in, and to do that, I'm going to collect it with a 3-turn tie-in. Now I'm tying this in on the tire side, and that's because when I do that, it's going to pull the material underneath. I like these ribs to be underneath for 2 reasons. One, when I get to the back, I can decide if I need to counter rib or not counter rib. And 2, it allows me to count the ribbing, so all my flies look the same, right? So I can have 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns. You know, if you're tying something real short, 3 turns, but they all start and end in the same place. If you're tying clockwise, you just start your material on the back side, and as you come underneath, you'll see that it's going to pull the material up underneath for you, like so. And so I'm just going to start it on the side. Straighten up my wire just a little bit. There it goes. Catch it underneath. Now I want my wire to line up with where my thread originally started. So I can just pull back very gently. Okay, now we're going to tie it in going to the back. The better that you get at this, you can actually just do your jam knot and then run the wire directly along your wire body. If you're not used to doing that, the 2 materials can be a little slippery together, and so you can practice that going forward. So we're just going to use the extra thread wraps and just build the body. It's not going to be a big deal for what we're doing. And again, I'm going to stop my thread about 1 bodkin width behind where I started my thread. Now, as we talked about, you can rib or counter rib depending on what it is that you're doing. If you have body material in here, you want to go counter to the way that you want your rib to go counter to the way that you use the body material. So if your body material is coming up over the back towards you, like on a for counterclockwise, you want to take your wire clockwise. If you've just got thread, you can go either way. So you just want to pay attention to what you're doing there, and it'll become second nature pretty quickly. For just a thread body, we don't need to worry about too much. So to keep my ribbing spaced evenly, I'm going to go back to my little bodkin tool, and all I'm going to do is make sure that, see, I've got a little wiggle room there. I'm going to shrink that down so that my bodkin fits nice and tight. Now you could use a small paper clip or something if you need to. And this is just a tool that's going to help you gauge if you're making your wraps even. And you want to make sure you're using the same point. See, that one's got too much wiggle room, so I can back it off a 1/4 turn or whatever I need to. And this, this isn't going to be a make or break deal for flies. It will be at some point, especially if you get into tying competitively, or you're just trying to come up with a really nice fancy presentation. You want to make sure that you've got even amount of wire showing on both sides of your fly. And that's, again, that's why we start our wire on the bottom. We're going to end it on the bottom up front. So as I bring this around and forward, my wire comes up over, making a full another turn. So as my thread comes down underneath, it's catching it. If you can see that. It's a little hard to do it on the side. But it's catching it almost at the same point as where it started on the bottom side. And now I can just wrap this forward a few turns. Now I'm going to gently pull down on my thread. I'm going to grab my wire and I'm going to roll it like a helicopter blade. A lot of people call it helicoptering the wire off. And now we're going to go back to our hurl. And if you're not confident with tying it in up front, which I suggest you learn to do, you can bring your thread back to the back and tie it in going forward if that's more suitable to you, or if you feel more comfortable doing that. Again, we're going to twist the hurl just to help reinforce it, make it a little bit more durable. We'll put in 2 or 3 turns. Maybe go 4. Again, I'm going to pull my peacock hurl onto the front side of my thread, lift it straight up. I'm going to wrap over twice. It's caught my hurl. I'm going to place another wrap or 2 in, moving forward. Flip my hurl around, tie all this in going back to the back. And with this stuff, on these types of flies, if you got a little bit of flu showing, that's actually what the hurl is called, is the little green fuzzy stuff is called flu. But if you have a little bit of flu showing, it's not the end of the world. I'll just wrap back and forth over it. If a little bit's exposed, I mean, it's really no big deal. Now I can whip finish or use a couple half hitches and some glue. And that's variation number 2. And so next we'll move on to doing basically the same thing, but using some dubbing for the thorax. And the next fly will actually be a fly. It's called the Black Beauty Midge. All right, for this third variation, it's actually not a variation. It's an actual pattern called the Black Beauty. I'm not sure exactly who created this fly. It may be a Pat Dorsey pattern, but don't quote me on that. And so just to kind of help get a grip on dubbing, all I've done here is made this kind of crude little dubbing scale. All I took was a piece of spiral notebook paper, a ruler, and a felt marker, a fine tip Sharpie. You want to make sure it's fine tip though. You don't want to use a big one because it'll lead you down the wrong path. And so what we're going to do when we get to the dubbing is we're going to take this little handmade tool and make sure that our dubbing fits in between the 1-inch marks, and that it's basically the exact same width as this black line that we created. So you can take a second and pause the video if you need to make one. Fairly simple to do. Use a pen if you don't, like a ballpoint pen or something if you don't have that. So this time what we're going to do is we'll step things up a little bit. We're going to do a 3-turn tie-in right on that black point there where we started our fly. This time we're going to tie the wire in right off the bat on the underside. We're not going to wrap down and back. I'm just going to start it on my tire side, line it up right up front. My first turn should be pretty much directly over the wire. Sorry, my thumb was in the way. And I want it to pull the wire down underneath by the second turn or so. And now with flat thread, make sure you flatten your thread out. We want thread control on all of these. Learn thread control early, and it will help you greatly, especially getting into year 2, year 3 of fly tying, when these techniques can potentially become extremely crucial. Again, we're just going to stop back there where the barb is, make sure our thread's flat, wrap forward. We're just going to keep following the same process throughout these flies. We're going to make sure we got a bodkin width gap. We're going to use our bodkin. Set it down. Should have just kept it in hand. Coupled with practice to make sure that our ribs are staying evenly gapped. I usually will go 2. The better you get at this, if you need to use a little device like this to measure your gapping. I mean, honestly, you won't need to do this very long. And again, all this is to do is to make sure that you have even amount of wire wraps. I think I said thread before, but even amount of wire wraps on both sides of the fly, and that they have the same tie-off point. So we're going to tie this guy off on the bottom just by bringing it forward. And by the third wrap or so, I can helicopter the wire off. Finish tying that in. Now I'm going to bring my thread back to the tie-off point on the bottom. I think I covered that up just a little bit. We want it to end on the bottom. I went too far back. Well, I can't fix it now, but that's okay. You'll get the hang of it. Usually I turn my fly over so I can see what I'm doing, but it just happens. Next, we're going to use some black dubbing, which I don't have at the moment. I thought I did. I do have some very handy, though. And so we're going to take a little pinch, and you can kind of see there's just not much. Like you'd read lettering between there. And we're going to start at the top, or close to the top. I turn my vise to the side so that I can twist a little bit. And we're just going to twist a little on. Now I can kind of bring my gauge on and say, hey, does that line up with my gauge? And you can see how it kind of lines up with the gauge. And we're almost to the 1 inch mark. Now, one thing you can do that I've done frequently for a long time is leave some untwisted dubbing on the back end. Now what this will allow you to do is you're wrapping forward. You can conveniently just add another turn or two of dubbing if you need to. If you don't have enough, and as long as you got this little tuft sticking out back, you can seamlessly blend the next round of dubbing right in with that and get it usually pretty much the same size. So you can see now that with my inch, I'm right at a bodkin width gap behind the eye, which is where we started. Now to get rid of this, you can just pull this up. We're going to put one wrap in front, and we're just going to cut this out. That's it. We don't have to make it all difficult. We can keep it real easy. Next, I'm just going to make a few turns back to the back. Grab my whip finisher and put a few turns in up front for the head. And now you have a Black Beauty midge. This is actually a really effective pattern, believe it or not. So we're going to move on to the fourth pattern, which is going to be the Black Beauty plus a wing case. But I think we're going to do something fun and actually have a split wing case. Okay, so for the fourth fly, we're going to do the Black Beauty. Oh, got some crap sticking off there. But we're going to do the Black Beauty with a wing case. Now we're going to make this wing case out of Hurl, just because it kind of gives the appearance of like some wings starting to actually bud out and come up top of the fly. But we're actually going to add to this. I wanted to originally just to do this, but you guys are probably itching to get that creative juice flowing, and so I want to expand on that. So we're going to actually put in a split wing case. And you can do the regular wing case like I just showed with just a Hurl wing case, or you can do the split wing case, or you can use turkey for the wing case, and you'll see how to do all of that in just a second. So what we're going to do is, again, I'm just going to start my thread right up front. This time I'll just go ahead and do a regular jam knot going to the back, just to show you that it doesn't make a ton of difference. Just for expediency, and what you should probably be learning to do off the get-go is tie your wire in on wire to shank, sorry, so you're not having to run back and forth. It ends up chewing up a lot of real estate, as it were, and makes your fly thicker than it should be. And so, again, flat open turns, We're just building the fly, nice smooth body. You can, let's see, this time, let's see, I ribbed before a regular way, so this time I'll counter rib it just for fun. I'm using silver wire just to help show you the different way that it'll lay, and also to get you to realize that, you know, this is where you get your artistic license here. Okay, you get to decide. This could be red wire, this could be purple wire, pink wire, whatever you want to do. Matter of fact, actually, if you've got different colored threads, you could use a different colored thread instead of wire to do this ribbing. This is where you get your artistic license. And so now that I came up the other way, I'm just to show you, I did the same thing, brought my wire on the front side of my thread. I'm going to tie it off going forward. Hold down, put tension on my bobbin, hold down, twist off. And this time what we're going to do, since we're going to put the wing case in, we're going to move over to our turkey tail. And if you're tying smaller flies, you probably just want to do, say, 18s, 16 to 24, say. You may just want 2 pieces of individual fibers off the turkey tail. So in this case, what I've done is I've stripped double, so I've got 2 for each side. Okay, and I'm going to tie these in first because this is going to show the splitting of the wing case for me. Okay, if you don't want to have your wing case split, then you just tie in your herl here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the width that I'm looking for to actually complete the wing case, because it's going to get folded back over on top of itself, something kind of like this, and the herl is going to be sticking through it. Okay, or you could just use this for your wing case if you wanted. I'll show you what that would kind of look like in just a second. So we're going to start it in right up front. We're going to tie it in right up top, work our way back to our rib. Now, if you wanted to just use turkey for your, or pheasant tail, if you got pheasant tail, just for your wing case, now you can pull it directly over the top, and now you've got a wing case. What we're going to do is a split wing case to kind of show that it's somewhat of an emerging pattern. And we're going to trim this out. And next what I'm going to do is I'll just get a couple pieces of herl. And again, you experiment with all these things. These are, it's like the title says, these are building blocks. This is where, again, where you get your creative license in tying flies. You learn these few basic things and a whole world of fly tying will open up to you. For not just midges and mayflies, but all kinds of things. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and dub the body, or dub the thorax, I should say. You can use your little 1-inch cheat sheet that you made, or if you're getting more confident, just go with your eyeball. The better you get at these, the more you're going to eyeball things, because you'll start to see them. See, I'm going to put a little bit bigger thorax this time. We're going to do the same thing because I want it to be kind of fluffy. I'm going to twist the herl. Plus, it reinforces itself when you do this. There's actually a really great method that I have a video on that you can look up for reinforcing herl. And I'm going to bring this directly over the top using wire and thread and tinsel and all kinds of stuff you can use. Again, I'm going to reverse it to the back, creating that V wedge. Snip these out one at a time. Now see, if you do it that way, you've still got a usable herl here that you can use on your next little fly. And to create a split wing case, we want the fibers to split around the peacock herl, so the peacock herl kind of shows through. So I'll just start my near side first, and I'll pull it towards me, or towards me in the front, so that it's kind of sitting on the side. And I'll put a couple of wraps in. Next, I'll turn it to the side and do the same thing. So now you can kind of see how you've got a split wing case look. This is a very popular look, especially with modern fly tying. This is a very modern look. You get the little split wing case. It looks like there's a little budding going on here. There's action in this fly. If you want to build an exterior head, I hadn't planned on talking about this, but this is a great way to do it, because we're going to cover this more throughout the series. You can actually, at this point, you can fold this to the back, put your head in, or you can take your bodkin, create a little bubble. It's a little hard to do with the light in my face. You can create a little bubble and have a little bubble for your head of your wing case right out front. Some people really like this, some people don't. If you struggle with it, don't worry about it, but you can do something like that. Pull everything back, finish your fly underneath. If you want to get real creative. But for everybody else that just wants to tie the fly, we're just going to reverse it to the back like we've done before. Wrap back, and we'll trim it out. So, it's like I said, use this for your artistic license in fly tying. This is where you get to practice these very simple things that change the dynamic of the flies that you're tying. And it doesn't take much. Usually it's just very simple, basic things. And so now, there you go. Now you have a black beauty with a split wing case. So you have an emerging wing case. And so essentially what you've done is basically just add a little hot spot in between there. It's a natural hot spot, or flashback. People call it flashback, but it's a little flashback hot spot, whatever you want to call it. It's all about the same at this point. So if you liked the video, as always, appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. And that was week 1 of basics to build on. And so next week we're going to work our way into the brassy and how to work more in depth with wire, do wire bodies and different things you can do with ribbing and counter ribbing. And it's just a real easy way without having to use a whole lot of materials and get too into the weeds. So I hope to see you for that. If you have any questions, you can always message me either on YouTube, or if you're in the Facebook group over at Fly Tying for Beginners, you will have access to me and you can message me that way. Or post a pic and ask questions. I'm happy to help any way I can. Other than that, as always, happy tying, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you next time.